I'm back with the one and only Ben Stein, author of The Peacemaker. Ben, when I think about Nixon and peace, I think about sort of three different vectors of conflict that Nixon was involved in adjudicating and maybe helping to dispel. One, of course, was the 1973 war involving Israel. One was the Cold War involving the Soviet Union. But there was also China. Right, exactly. So we have Nixon in China, Nixon and the Soviets, Nixon and Israel. Why don't we talk for a moment about each of those to italicize what was Nixon's accomplishment? Let's start with China. What did Nixon accomplish and why regarding China?
Nixon had achieved reconnecting with China. China had been ostracized, kicked out, treated badly by the United States since they beat Chiang Kai-shek and took over almost all of China. And Nixon said, this isn't going to work. This is not doing anyone any good. And so he renewed relations with China. And in so doing, he isolated Russia. He made sure that Russia was the only country that was surrounded mostly, not entirely, by hostile communist countries. And in so doing, he said to the Russians, basically, you cannot win the Cold War. You cannot win the Cold War. If we have China and the U.S. together and you versus NATO, you can't win. You can't win. You might as well just give it up. Just make peace and make friends. And it works incredibly, unbelievably well. I mean, the Russians are not idiots, and they realized they had been outdone by Nixon's diplomacy. And he was that's the kind of interesting thing. People call him Tricky Dick. People call him names of all kinds. But he was essentially a diplomat and a peacemaker. And this is the amazing. What other president has ever done that? What other president has ever stood up to the forces of history? And there's a famous saying about I'm sure you know better than I do, about William F. Buckley standing up to the train of history and saying, stop. I'm sure you know that very well. And I think Nixon did that better than anyone else. Has said, communism, you're not going to beat us. Bolshevism, you're not going to beat us. War, you're not going to beat us. We're going to stand up, and we're going to stand up not to conquer Europe, not to conquer Asia, but to bequeath peace. And that's a very, very big, noble gift.
What do you think, Ben? It was Margaret Thatcher who said that Reagan won the Cold War without firing a shot. As you know, the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, right after Reagan's tenure. The Soviet Union, of course, collapsed under George H.W. Bush. Do you see a kind of continuity of a strategy and policy between Nixon and Reagan? It seemed at the time that there were some important differences between the two, but are you saying that with the larger vantage point of history, Reagan was continuing in the Nixonian path?
Well, I would say not the larger, the longer point of view of history. As long as we had a long train running, saying to the Russians, just forget about it. You're not going to win. And as long as we had the incredible technological breakthrough of the internet, which allowed Russians to get news about the rest of the world, limited to be sure by our standards, the Russians were told, behave yourselves. You might be able to make something of yourselves. You have all those great looking girls, so you have a big start in that regard. And why not? Why not make peace? What do you have to lose by making peace? And then, unfortunately, after Nixon entered immortality, the Democrats took over in large measure in the making of foreign policy in the United States. And the Democrats did not understand about standing up to Russia and to Bolshevism. And that was a disaster. And by the way, I look at my old next door neighbor, Carl Bernstein, wonderful next door neighbor, charming fellow, great guitarist, and his partner in crime, Bob Woodward. And I think to myself, if they had not done evil deeds they had done, there would have been no Cambodian genocide. And Nixon would never have allowed a Cambodian genocide. Ford, unfortunately, did, but Nixon would not have, and Nixon valued life.
We'll be right back with Ben Stein, author of The Peacemaker, the website MrMrBenstein.com. Mike Lindell just keeps on introducing great deals. He's featuring the all-new MyPillow My Towels. Save 50% off on the 6-piece towel set. Regular price $59.96, but now, for a limited time, only $29.98 with promo code Dinesh. Debbie and I have Mike's My Towels all over the house. We love them for ourselves. We also like giving them away as Christmas presents. Idea for you to consider. My Towels 6-piece set includes 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, 2 washcloths. The towels are really amazing. The long staple length of the Sherpa cotton fibers makes them very soft. Because of the long fibers, they can wrap around each other more easily, creating a smoother and softer fabric. Soft to the touch, but without the lotiony feel, and also very absorbent. So take advantage of the 50% off on the 6-piece towel set. Call 800-876-0227. Again, 800-876-0227. Or go to mypillow.com. Don't forget to use the promo code DINESH Dinesh.